Another gorgeous day. The engine is roaring, sun is shining. ZXR 1100. Thought today I would do my first, I think, top 5 video. You know what? I'll call it a top 4 list, and I'll add that 5th. And it's a top 5 accessories a 2019 bike has to have, demanded by me at least. And number 1 is a fuel gauge. Thus, if you sell a bike in 2019 and you don't even have a fuel gauge, that's completely lazy design, and I'm not gonna buy your bike if you can't even give me a fuel gauge. Some bikes have, like my CBR 600F has a reserve only fuel gauge, and I have to say I hate it, because the moment that reserve shows up, you know you have a limited amount of fuel and you have no idea when that reserve is starting. You could be riding, passing a gas station thinking, oh, I still got gas, and then 2 seconds after you pass it, your reserve lights or reserve LCD stuff turns on, and you could risk getting stranded if you're not able to turn around and if you're far away from a gas station. Now it's about 20 minutes of average riding, like free highway speeds and stuff, so you should be okay in most countries. But if you're like going for a little bit of road trip and you're out away from civilization, you could risk getting stranded. You could risk it pretty easily. So fuel gauge is number 1. Should be there. Number 2, ABS and traction control. ABS is sort of a forced thing for EU bikes. So they basically all have ABS, but traction control is not standard, and it should be, because traction control can save you in a lot of situations. It's very good for beginners that may not have the ability to control their acceleration, and especially if the grip of the road is reduced, like if it's raining, if it's if it's just sandy, or if there are gravel in the road, or whatever reasons there are. If you have traction control, and especially if you have a good traction control, like if you have 3 different modes, like on, off, and or the off mode should always be there, of course, because you don't want to be forced to use the traction control, but you definitely should have the ability to use it. So mode 1 should be decent, but not too interrupting. It shouldn't be like kicking in every time you accelerate, but it should at least help you if the rear wheel starts spinning, maybe even prevent wheelies, unless the bike has its own anti-wheelie system. Of course, the second should be for rain and like poor road conditions, which really it should be standard with all bikes. It's sort of to give someone ABS and not give them traction control. It's sort of like giving them half of what they need. You're sort of giving me bread but no water. I need my water and my bread. So third on my list is a gear indicator. That too is one of those things that I cannot understand why you would make a... Of course, if it's a real budget bike, I mean, you don't need a gear indicator on like a scooter or a moped or something. I don't know, scooters don't have gears, but you know what I mean. The cheap stuff, I can understand. If you get past, I would say past 250 cc's, you're in the range where you could be in gears without realizing which one. It doesn't really matter when you're riding a moped because you're just gunning it. Now of course you can easily have a bike without any of these things so far. I mean, none of these things are things that has to be on a bike, but it's things I personally, when I'm going to buy my new bike come spring, these are things I will demand having. And I personally really feel that I need to have a good gear indicator. It should be big too. I don't like those uber small ones where you sort of have to like go closer to the bike to even see it. It has to be like visible. Which brings me to sort of the fourth, which is I want a good visible dash. Now actually I would almost prefer to have a analog rev counter, but I can do with either one. But I want digital speedometer. I see some bikes, I believe it's several actually that I have seen, still have analog speedometer, and this is not as easy to read when you just glance down because the needle is small. It's sort of hard to see the difference between like 40, 50, 60 kilometers an hour when you are doing like these speeds. I go down, I have no idea what I just saw. A quick look down, all I see is numbers. I don't see what the numbers are, and that makes it, in my opinion, a horrible speedometer, or horrible to read. And you should never underestimate the power of a good speedometer. Good clean numbers, preferably a white numbers on a black background. And for night riding, I would like to have the option to change that to a black numbers on a white background for more lights. That's sort of a part of the fourth demand, if you will, is that the lights have to, or the dash has to be visible, a good visible dash, not just have all the extra stuff like speedometers and trip gauges and all of that stuff, but I really need it to be very visible, because not enough of these gauges or dashes are visible. The LEDs work pretty good during the day, but I have seen both day and night riding where the dash gets hard to read, especially if you have the sun in your face, or if the sun is all the way down and it's dark. So should definitely have a good dash LED screen. Now number 5 is sort of a weird one, because on my number 5 list I put accessories, which may sound like sort of a cop-out, but if I'm going to buy a new bike, I don't just want the bike itself to be good, but I want to be able to get extra parts, original parts that I know is going to work, like extra screens, maybe even change out, like you might maybe want to change out some of the blinkers. You may even want to change the mirrors. I want original extra parts. So we know that because of the rules and regulations, they have to put on exhausts that don't make a lot of noise, that may sound a little tame. You have to put mirrors on that's big and visible, blinkers that are good and visible, everything else. But there are a lot of aftermarket parts that actually do a lot of good things, like blinkers that are smaller but still have more light are actually better, in my opinion, than huge bulb lights that doesn't really light a lot. So I would like any bike that comes out, that this is the list of bikes I'm looking at, mind you, not the bikes in general. If you're coming out with a brand new 2019 model only that's never been seen before, of course you can't have all the extra parts, but for this specific part, I want a lot of accessories available, and I want as much of those accessories to be original as possible. We're also, of course, talking maybe you want some side bags, maybe you want a tank bag, you may even want like a lot of stuff that's sort of extra but really good to have. And I think that should be available. So that's my top 5 list. I know that last one may not be for everyone, but the first 4, I really believe those are general for any bike coming out in 2019. The 5th can be, you know what, I'll call it a top 4 list, and I'll add that 5th as a bonus. So the 5th one is a bonus. I saw the 2018 Kawasaki Z900, and there are no electronics, there are no fuel gauge. It has ABS, but it does not have traction control, and it does not have any modes. Modes are also a thing I would like, but not something that you can expect on every bike. It's really disappointing that in 2018 at least, probably 2019 too, that you can get a brand new Kawasaki 900 and it doesn't even have traction control, it doesn't have any anti-wheelie, and the dash on the Z900 is horrible. It is, if I don't recall wrongly, it does have a digital, semi-digital dash. I believe it has the rev counter as analog, and I'm a fan of that. That's like the one redeeming part. The Z900 is just generally a disappointment in general. That's all I have for you for today. That's my top 4 list with the bonus 5th. So I'll talk to you later.